Good morning. Okay, good morning, everyone. Hello. So we were discussing the critical period hypothesis given by Lineberg. And what is this hypothesis all about? It says that there is a time period during the course of maturation, and that is before the adolescence or before the commencement of puberty, when we are highly predisposed towards learning a new language, right? Learning any language. This period offers us the greatest sensitivity towards acquiring language. Once this period has elapsed, learning a new language becomes challenging and tough. If not impossible, it becomes challenging and tough. That is why this period of maturation, when we are most sensitive towards acquiring language, is known as critical period of language acquisition. So Lineberg, who was a nativist, he says that language acquisition by and large is not product of environment and learning. It is by and large product of maturational changes that take place with development of age. That means which maturation we are most open for acquiring language. Of course, he is not saying the importance of environment. He is not ignoring that there is no importance of environment. In the critical period, if you are not exposed to the verbal community, then you will not acquire language. And if you are exposed to verbal community after the critical period is over, then you will have difficulty in acquiring language. So if environmental factors like parents, teachers, caregivers, and their speech and talk is important, then equally important is the maturational stage that sets you prepared for acquiring language. Unless and until that maturational stage is ready, we can't learn language, right? This is critical period hypothesis, and this is the nativist position. Now, Lineberg says that our brain is divided into two parts, two hemispheres. So there are two hemispheres in the brain, left hemisphere and the right hemisphere. Left hemisphere and the right hemisphere. So if your brain is open, it will have two hemispheres, left and right. At the time of birth, they have equal potential. At the time of birth, they have equal potential. So at the time of birth, they have equal potential, which means the functions that can be acquired by left hemisphere and the functions that can be acquired by right hemisphere has no distinction. Any of the hemisphere can acquire any function. Now, the purpose of existence of these two hemispheres is to divide the functions amongst themselves. All functions cannot be handled by one hemisphere. So they divide the task between themselves. Now, as we start growing up since birth, as we grow up, their functions become more and more specialized and rigid over the years. So as we begin to grow up, their functions begins to become more specialized and rigid. In other words, the left hemisphere specializes in certain function and right hemisphere will specialize in certain other function. So no two hemisphere will specialize in same function. Okay? Left hemisphere will specialize in its own functions, right hemisphere will specialize in its own function, and once the specialization has taken place, they will become rigid. Okay? They will become rigid. Left hemisphere will not learn the task of right, and the right will not learn the task of left, because both are specialists. Okay? So when I began teaching, I was open to teach any subject, but with experience, when I developed mastery over psychology, I would insist that I would teach only psychology and not geography or not polity or not something else. Now, This rigidity came due to specialization. You are understanding? Okay. Now, left functions typically get located in the left hemisphere. Sorry, language functions typically get located in the left hemisphere. So language functions typically get located in the left hemisphere. Therefore, if there is damage in the left hemisphere due to brain injury, therefore, if there is damage in the left hemisphere due to brain injury at an early age, if there is damage in the left hemisphere due to brain injury at an early age, the damage can be compensated by shifting of language function into right hemisphere. The damage can be compensated by shifting of language functions into right hemisphere. So should there be a brain damage in the left hemisphere, the language function which were taken up by left hemisphere, that function will be shifted to right hemisphere, and right hemisphere will compensate for the loss. Okay. However, compensation will be difficult if damage takes place. Compensation would be difficult if damage takes place during adolescence. However, compensation will be difficult when the damage takes place during adolescence, that is puberty, because by that time, the language is well established in left hemisphere. Because by that time, the language is well established in left hemisphere. So whatever language is lost was well established language, and our right hemisphere cannot compensate for that loss. It is not easy. ठीक है? इसीलिए अच्छा, best recovery takes place if the damage is before age of 5, because still specialization is going on. Specialization is yet to happen. Specialization of left and right hemisphere are not completed. So 5 साल के पहले अगर लेफ्ट हेमिस्फीयर में चोट लगे तो बच्चे ऑलमोस्ट पूरा रिकवर कर जाते हैं लैंग्वेज, लेकिन एडोलेसेंस में चोट लगेगा तो कंप्लीट रिकवरी मुश्किल है, नामुमकिन है. राइट? नाउ let us see the evidence in favor of critical period hypothesis given by Lenneberg. Evidences in favor. Evidences in favor. Aphasia. Aphasia is a linguistic disorder related to loss of language following a brain injury. Aphasia is a linguistic disorder related to loss of language following a brain injury. Children who become aphasic before the puberty, recover most of their lost language functions, and recovery is best before the age of 5. And recovery is best before the age of 5. ठीक है? Recovery is best before the age of 5. But Brain damage after puberty. Brain damage after puberty is followed by slow and partial recovery of language. But brain damage after puberty is followed by slow and partial recovery of language. This evidence supports that there is a critical period during which we are most sensitive to acquire language. Okay? Second evidence is related to learning of second language. Learning of second language. Newport found that young children show better ability in acquiring the second language. Young children show better ability in acquiring the second language. Adults and older children may have initial advantage but young children show better understanding of complex rules of grammar. Adults and older children may have initial advantage, but younger children show better understanding of complex rules of grammar. Finding by Newport. Third evidence comes from the evidence of deprived children. Deprived children. Here we may quote the example of wild boy Averon. Averon. The example of wild boy Averon, who was recovered from South France. He was recovered from an isolated place in South France. So Averon was a feral child. Averon was a feral child, abandoned at birth. Averon was feral child, abandoned at birth, and had little chance to acquire language during early years of life. And had little chance to acquire language during early years of life. A French educationalist, Dr. Itard, a French educationist, Dr. Itard, could teach him only 2 words after he was rescued. So Averon was Tarzan boy, recovered from an isolated forest in South France. He was a feral child abandoned by his parents. Now, he was deprived of linguistic community or linguistic stimulation during the early years of life, due to which language function did not develop. Now, even the French educationist Dr. Itard could not teach him more than 2 words after the completion of critical period. Okay? Likewise, you may quote the example of Jenny. वो important नहीं है, मुझे क्या पता कौन से 2 वर्ड. ठीक है, क्वांटिटी पे ध्यान दो, और टू वर्ड्स फ्रेंच होगा, तुमको समझ में ऐसे भी नहीं आएगा, ठीक है। जेनी, जेनी whose father isolated her in a room, Jenny whose father isolated her in a room on the pretext that she was mentally retarded, was rescued at the age of 13, 1-3, was rescued at the age of 13 in 1970. After training, she was able to learn some vocabulary. After training, she was able to learn some vocabulary, but could hardly understand the rules of grammar. After training, she could acquire some vocabulary, but could hardly understand the rules of grammar. Clear है? बहुत क्लियर विजिबिलिटी नहीं है, थोड़ा हेजीनेस है। ठीक है, हाँ, now it is better. Is the resolution better now? Okay. So this was critical period hypothesis. Now, if we agree by critical period hypothesis that language acquisition is a process that is also dependent upon maturation, then maturation unfolds itself in different stages. So language should also unfold itself at different stages. So language acquisition and language development should proceed in a sequential manner, in a stage-wise manner, and these stages should be universal for all, if we believe in nativist position. So let us see the stages of language development. Stages of language development. Language development may be divided into two parts: language comprehension and language production. So by and large, the entire process of development of language can be divided into two categories: language comprehension and language production. Language comprehension is the receptive phase when children are passive recipient of verbal stimulation. They are receiving the language of the adult and they're trying to understand it, but they are not able to produce it. Okay? And language production may be called productive phase, when you are not only reacting to adult speech, you are also producing language by your own choice proactively. Okay? Now, according to Schaffer, may I change the page? According to Schaffer, children must learn language using the order listed below. Children must learn language using the order listed below. It begins with phonology. It begins with phonology. The first stage of language acquisition is learning to make sound. Okay? Learning to make sound, different types of sounds, phonology. The second stage should be semantics. Understanding the meaning of the sounds. The second stage of development should be understanding the meaning of the sounds. The third stage should be syntax. Syntax का मतलब sentence होता है, ठीक है? So rules of grammar, using rules of grammar for combining words into sentences. Using rules of grammar for combining words into sentences. So we saw that rules of grammar suggest that subject should always precede the object while constructing a sentence. Okay? So these are rules of grammar. And then when further development of language takes place, children learn the art of pragmatics. How to change the rules of grammar so that it can fit into social context. How to change the rules of grammar so that it fits into the social context. If you want to know somebody's identity, what will be the sentence that you would use? What is the sentence grammatically correct? Who are you? Now, if you say who are you to somebody in the social context, it can be very offensive. It can be very offensive. Who are you? So how do you say? May I humbly discover your identity, please? Now see, you are manipulating the rules of grammar when it comes to interaction in social context. Now this ability will come at a later point of time. And for some people, it never comes throughout the entire life. वो सीधा blatantly पूछ लेंगे, who are you? ठीक है? और कुछ तो और कमाल के होते हैं, who you? और उससे भी कमाल, why you? So it will follow a sequence, a order. ठीक है? The stages, the details of the stages are as follows. जैसे आप ही ने कहा व्हाट्स योर नेम, व्हाट्स योर नेम के जगह लोग क्या बोलते हैं, व्हाट्स योर गुड नेम. ठीक है, लोग बहुत सारा कुछ अपने से ऐड कर देते हैं. दीज आर रूल्स ऑफ प्रैग्मेटिक सोशल कॉन्टेक्स्ट में. नाउ स्टेजेस, डिटेल्स ऑफ द स्टेजेस एज फॉलोज. इट बिगिंस विद अर्ली वोकलाइजेशन. It begins with early vocalization. Newborns cry when they are distressed. Newborns cry in distress. Hunger cry, 3 types of cry. Pain cry, sleep cry. This is the early vocalization. So when they're hungry, they will cry and they will try to communicate. So the cry becomes their language of communication. They will cry when they're in pain, and the tone between hunger cry and pain cry will be distinguishable. So that is the first attempt to produce language through cry. No use of words, only sound. साउंड में चेंज लाला करके माँ बाप को बताना चाह रहे हैं कि मुझे दर्द हो रहा है या मुझे भूख लग रहा है, और माँ बाप को समझ में भी आएगा कि हो क्या रहा है. ठीक है, ओके. बट even when they are not in distress, they produce fake cry. Even when they are not in distress, they produce fake cry. because they enjoy listening to their own sound. Because they enjoy listening to their own sound and voices, they make fake cries. A fake cry में देखो 3 to 5 weeks of age, 3 to 5 weeks of age, they produce vowel-like sounds. They produce vowel-like sounds called cooing. ठीक है, called cooing. तो ऐसे आवाज करते हैं ऊ, ठीक है, उनको अपना आवाज मजा आ रहा है, फेक क्राई है, ठीक है, vowel-like sound. 3 to 5 weeks. Over and over again, they will produce this kind of sound. This is followed by vowel plus consonant. This is followed by vowel plus consonant. With combination of both is known as babbling. So along with vowel, some consonants will also be added. Ba, 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 tat, tat, you know, vowel plus consonant. It is called babbling, which do not have any meaning. Up to 6 months of age, now interesting fact is, up to 6 months of age, babbling is similar in all parts of the world. Up to 6 months of age, babbling is similar, common in all parts of the world, including deaf infants. बहरे बच्चे भी उसी तरह बैबल करते हैं, ठीक है? By 8 months, infants show some differences in their babbling that reflects their language. By 8 months, infants begin to show some differences in their babbling behavior, reflecting their language, reflecting the language which they have heard. Reflecting their language, that is the language which they have heard. Sometimes letting the adults accurately guess, if the infant is babbling in Arabic or French, Chinese or Indian. So by 8 months, adults are able to accurately guess that this baby is Chinese baby or Indian baby or Arabic baby. उसके babbling में उसका language आने लगता है, ठीक है? मैं वही सोचता हूँ चाइनीज बेबी कैसे babble करता हूँ. Second, one word stage. One word stage. सच में लेकिन चाइनीज बेबी कैसे बैबल करता होगा? Until 18 months, children refer to things of interest until 18 months, children begin to refer to things of their interest and 2/3 of the children refer to objects, and 2/3 of the children refer to objects and people. Objects and people. So they would only utter one word. Which word will refer to some object or some person who interests them? Object of interest. Okay. Nelson in 1973 found that largest category of words belong to the classes of objects. Largest category of words belong to the classes of objects. So let us see the largest category and the smallest category of one word utterances. So largest were the classes of objects like cat, car, okay, followed by specific objects. Mummy, daddy. These are specific objects. Okay. Followed by action words. Go, come. Followed by modifiers. Followed by modifiers like small, mine. You know, so object is small or big. Object is yours or mine. It is modifying the meaning. And then followed by functional words. Nay, followed by social words. Social words include please, no, their frequency is minimum by 18 months. Okay? And then comes the functional words or function words. Function words are used by adults to grammatically complete the sentences. Okay? For example, where, for, at, in, on, and. Function words. So frequency is highest for classes of object and it is least for function word. That is why their speech is not complete. Their sentences require addition of proposition. Their sentences will miss the proposition. At, is, where, for, and ये सब missing होगा. सिर्फ object के noun और verb ही majorly रहेंगे. Proposition missing होगा. ठीक है? Now third, in the third stage, they commit so many mistakes. The third stage is characterized by mistakes with meaning. Mistakes with meanings. Meanings of word. Mistake with meaning of words. And there are two types of mistakes. One is overextension and the other is underextension. Overextension and underextension. Overextension is the phenomena of covering more objects than they should. Overextension is using word to cover more object than they should. Overextension is using word to cover more objects than they should. So one word covering many objects. This type of mistake is called overextension. For example, calling every grown-up man as daddy. Overextension. जितने भी मूछ वाले लोग हैं सबको डैडी बोलना, ये ओवर एक्सटेंशन है. जितनी भी साड़ी वाली औरत है सबको मम्मी बोलना, ओवर एक्सटेंशन. एंड अंडर एक्सटेंशन मीन्स child believing that one word that refers to a specific brand represents the entire category of the object. ठीक है. So if you ask what is cereal, the child is saying cereal means Shakti Bhog. So he has no idea that cereal can contain of several types of grains. He understands grains in terms of the specific brand that he is using. That means he is under extending. Cereal is a larger term and he is making shorter use of that. जैसे मेरी बेटी बोलती थी, मैं पूछता था रोटी कहाँ से आता है, तो कभी उसने गेहूं नहीं बोला, बोलती थी शक्ति भोग से आता है. मैंने उससे पूछा दूध कहाँ से आता है, तो मर्डर डेयरी से आता है. मर्डर डेयरी, मदर डेयरी भी नहीं, मर्डर डेयरी. ठीक है. दिस इज अंडर एक्सटेंशन. Then comes the fourth stage, holophrastic stage. McNeil in 1970 found that in one word stage, which is called holophrastic stage, children try to convey more than one meaning. In one word stage, that is holophrastic stage, children try to convey more than one meaning in their utterances. Children try to convey more than one meaning in their utterances. For example, child pointing towards a ball with fingers. Child pointing towards a ball with fingers says ball. उसने बॉल की तरफ उंगली किया और बोला बॉल. तो इसका मतलब क्या निकलता है? इसके दो मतलब निकलते हैं. इसका एक मतलब है द चाइल्ड वांट्स टू प्ले विद बॉल. ठीक है, वांट टू प्ले. एंड दूसरा मतलब निकलता है दैट चाइल्ड वांट्स टू टेल द पेरेंट्स that he or she recognizes the object. The child wants to convey that he she recognize the object. बॉल बोल के चुप हो जाएगा. अब माँ बाप को समझना पड़ेगा ये बॉल से खेलना चाहता है या बताना चाह रहा है कि मुझे बॉल पहचानना आता है. ठीक है. So one utterance will have multiple meanings. In the fifth stage, there is further development. The holophrastic stage converts into telegraphic stage. telegraphic stage or telegraphic speech. Now, during earlier days, when there was no telephone, people used to send urgent messages using telegrams. And telegrams used to charge per word written. So it was quite expensive. And hence, in order to save the money in sending telegrams, people used to write sentences which did not have the non-essential prepositions like on, is, for, that, please, sorry, may. ये सब नहीं होता था. Only the urgent and essential words were written, which will convey the meaning. Like, I had a room partner when I was preparing for civil service. He was from a very well-off family. His father was head of the department. His mother was also a professor. But he was extreme miser. मतलब माइजरी इतना कि आप सोच नहीं सकते. मतलब सोचो, उसके पास एक पुराना ऑस्टिन गाड़ी होता था, ठीक है. वो गाड़ी को ना धक्का देके पेट्रोल पंप तक ले जाता था पूरा फैमिली, और बोलता था इसमें 3 पॉइंट पेट्रोल डाल दो. 3 पॉइंट डलवाता था, मार्केट होकर के शॉपिंग करके लौट आता था, ठीक घर के सामने गाड़ी बंद पड़ जाती थी, फिर ठेल के गाड़ी अंदर कर देता था. एक दिन क्या हुआ, मैं भी पेट्रोल पंप में था. आई वॉज फिलिंग माई स्कूटर एंड ही केम विथ हिज कार. धक्का लगा के बोला कि आज 1 लीटर डाल दो. तो पंप वाला पूछता है आज लॉन्ग ड्राइव पे जा रहे हैं क्या सर? इतना कंजूस. नाउ वी वुड कॉल आवर पेरेंट्स ऑन एसटीडी. उस समय मोबाइल तो था नहीं, एसटीडी बूथ में जाते थे तो बातें करते थे. बिल आता था सभी का. ये बंदा कभी बात नहीं करता था घर में. ये सिर्फ महीना जब खत्म हो जाए, पैसा इसको चाहिए, उस समय बात करता था. He would call the parents only when he has to reimburse. And that time, if you pick up the phone and say hello and just you keep it, it will cost you 3 rupees 32 paisa. That was the basic charge. तो वो उठाता था और इतना ही बोलता था, एंड मनी सेंड मनी, रख देता था. दिस इज टेलीग्राफिक स्पीच. बहुत कहानियां उसके बारे में. There used to be another fellow, Naveen. Now Naveen was very thin, underweight, and he applied for Central Police Forces CPF exam. So he was a good student. He would clear the written exam, but the problem was he was underweight. So somebody suggested him that you increase your diet, carb बढ़ा दो. So if you eat 3 chapatis, eat 4 now onwards, within 6 months your weight will increase. Now this friend of mine was the mess manager of our flat. So we gave the charge of kitchen management to him because he would not let things waste. So in the beginning he asked everybody कितना रोटी खाना है, सबको पूछ लिया, और उससे एक क्या आधा रोटी भी आपको एक्स्ट्रा नहीं मिलेगा जितना आपने बोल दिया है. तो नवीन के खाते 3 रोटी था, ठीक है. नवीन ने कुक को किचन में जाके बोला मेरे लिए आज से 4 रोटी बनाओगे. तो ये क्या करता था, जब कुक लोई बनाता था ना, गिनता था. तो बोला ये एक्स्ट्रा क्यों? नवीन भैया बोले हैं उनको 1 रोटी एक्स्ट्रा खाना है. अच्छा, मेरे खर्चे पे नवीन में मोटाएगा, ये कैसे हो सकता है? उसने क्या किया, बोला रुको रुको वापस लाओ. नवीन के 3 में से ही थोड़ा थोड़ा निकल के नवीन 6 महीना 4 रोटी खाता था लेकिन मोटा नहीं हुआ. So anyway, the thing is, ये लोग भी बहुत कंजूसी करते हैं टेलीग्राफिक स्पीच पे. They would only say the important words. Telegrams were so expensive. Telegrams were so expensive that senders used to drop the function words like a, the, and, etc. using only the nouns and verbs. Using only the nouns and verbs. In telegraphic speech, children leave out even more. In telegraphic speech, children leave out even more. however still can communicate, however can still can communicate meaning. However still can communicate meaning, but the meaning may not be single, it may emerge to be multiple. For example, daddy chair. The child has uttered a telegraphic speech. There are two words, daddy chair. Okay? Now, what are the meanings that you can derive from these two words, daddy chair? First, daddy, I want to sit in chair. Second, daddy is sitting in chair. Or daddy, sit in the chair. For all these three meanings, they will use the common daddy chair. So I want to sit in the chair, daddy is sitting in the chair, daddy sit in the chair. Next stage comes with pivot and open words. Pivot words and open words. Brian in the year 1963 found that early speech consists of two main classes of words. Early speech consists of two main classes of words, pivot words and open words. Pivot words are those which occur in the same place within the utterance. Pivot words are those which occur in the same place within the utterance. They are used most often and are few in numbers. They are used most often and are few in numbers. Example of pivot word may be all. Open words appear in different places in different utterances. They appear in different places and different utterances. They are numerous. They are numerous, but are used rarely. Say if all is a pivot word, open word that can be attached to this pivot word may be clean, well, done, dressed. Messy. So there will be one pivot word all, and along with that there can be multiple open words that will vary in different utterances. Okay? This is the basic of children's speech. Then comes the basic order rule. Seventh one, learning the order of grammar. Basic order rule. Roger Brown (1973) found that children possess the basic order rule, which is agent followed by action followed by object, followed by location. So while constructing the sentence, they follow a basic order rule: agent, action, object, location. Like daddy eats lunch at home. Daddy is the agent, eating is the action, object is lunch, and location is home. Daddy eats lunch at home. ये सीक्वेंस बच्चे फॉलो करेंगे. दिस इज बेसिक ऑर्डर रूल. Even in case of two-word utterance, even in the case of two-word utterances, when they are using only two words, they follow the basic order rule. Even in two-word utterances, they follow the basic order rule. Like they are likely to say, daddy walk. Here daddy is agent and walk is action. And they are not likely to say walk daddy. So this is less likely. So action will not precede agent. Agent will precede the action. For example, they would say, drink Coke. Here, drink is action. Coke is object. देख लो, एक्शन पहले आता है, ऑब्जेक्ट बाद में आता है. ड्रिंक कोक. दे विल नॉट से कोक ड्रिंक. दे वोंट से कोक ड्रिंक बिकॉज कोक ड्रिंक में ऑब्जेक्ट पहले आ जा रहा है, एक्शन बाद में. सो इवन इन टू वर्ड अटरेंसेस दे विल फॉलो द बेसिक ऑर्डर रूल. ठीक है, समझ में आ रहा है? देख लो, इसको समझ लो. I would just take a minute. So basic order rule is you have the agent, that is subject, action, that is verb, object and location. ठीक है, यही सीक्वेंस फॉलो करेंगे, चाहे दो वर्ड भी यूज कर रहे हैं तो यही सीक्वेंस में यूज करेंगे. This is another development that takes place, and then comes the age between 2.5 to 5 years. Then children reach the age between 2.5 to 5 years. In this age, we find increase in the mean length of utterances. So now it is no more limited to one word or two word utterances. There is increase in the mean length. So this increase in mean length is measured in terms of number of morphemes used. Number of morphemes used. That means words with meaning. How many words with meaning are being used? Meaningful words are called morphemes. Words with meaning or meaningful units of speech are called morphemes, and number of grammatical morphemes. Number of grammatical morphemes. That is the function words or proposition, whatever you call it. Number of function words or propositions being used in prefix or suffix. For example, adding s, using a or an, using and, in, on, at, इनके भी numbers बढ़ जाते हैं. So both meaningful words which are called morphemes, they increase in number, and also the function words or propositions increase in number. ठीक है, a or at ये सब sentence में लगना शुरू होंगे. And then comes the ninth phase, which is over regularization. We also know, we are also aware about this over regularization. That means children are now using grammar by their own. They are no more imitating the parental speech. They are trying to use grammar by their own, and they are committing virtuous errors or intelligent mistakes. If you remember, the child says, the dog runned away. This is an example of over regularization. So this phase shows that instead of imitating the parent speech, children commit intelligent mistakes. Instead of imitating the parental speech, children commit intelligent mistakes. Because parent will never use this kind of language. Dog runned away. So they think that if I add ed following a verb, it will become past tense. It will change the tense from present to past. But this rule is over regularized rule, over generalized rule. This doesn't happen for all verbs. This can happen with play, played, but it cannot happen with run. Run ka past ran hota hai. So they are committing an intelligent mistake. Okay? Now it may be argued that, okay, the child may not have heard it from parents. Child might have heard it from other child. Okay? And therefore he is imitating. Now, to rule out this, Burko carried an experiment. Although this is not important, but still I'm giving you. Burko carried out an experiment. He showed the children with ambiguous pictures of imaginary creature. बच्चों को ambiguous picture दिखाया गया imaginary creatures के. And they were told, this is a bug. They were told, this is a bug. Then they were shown another picture and told, this is another bug. This is another bug. And then the question that followed was, there are two dash. The children were asked to fill in the blanks. Okay? Children wrote bugs. That means they have learned the language grammar, that when there are more than one bug, I have to add S. So they are actually applying grammar. Here they are applying correct grammar, not wrong grammar. There are two bugs. तो is के साथ S नहीं लगता है, R के साथ S लगता है. There are तो S लगेगा bugs में. ठीक है? And finally comes the pragmatics, the stage of pragmatics. The stage of pragmatics. Gelman et al. 1973 analyzed the speech of 4-year-old. Gelman 1973 analyzed the speech of 4-year-old while they were talking about a new toy. While they were talking about a new toy to an adult. Gelman analyzed the speech of 4-year-old children while they were talking about a new toy to an adult. They were using complex sentences. He found that they used complex sentences. So they were giving the details of the new toy. They were using complex sentences while talking to the adult. But while talking to a 2-year-old, so when the 4-year-old is talking to a 2-year-old, they avoid using complex sentence. They avoid using complex sentence and simply say, look at this. That means they have developed the understanding that younger boys will not understand complex sentence, adults will not appreciate simple sentence. So they have understood what should be the pattern of communication in a social context. So by the age of 4, children have acquired the rules of pragmatics. How to use speech in social context, they have got it by the age of 4. So these were the stages of linguistic development. Now you may not be able to write all the stages in exam if they have asked, only write the major ones. So start with holophrastic, telegraphic, okay? Then expansion of the phrases, the number of words, and then the 4th one, rules of pragmatics. इतना ही 4 stage लिखेंगे समझ में आ जाएगा, ठीक है? Now coming to Noam Chomsky. Another theory of language development that represents the nativist school. So Noam Chomsky, who is a nativist, gave an interesting theory. Noam Chomsky published his theory in criticism of Skinner's theory. He published his theory in criticism to Skinner's theory. अब ध्यान से सुनिए इस थ्योरी को. He argued that what children receive from the parents, he argued that what children receive from the parent is an impoverished language input. What children hear from their parents, receive from their parents, is an impoverished language input. Impoverished का मतलब कुपोषित language मिलता है पेरेंट्स से बच्चों को. Adults do not typically speak in grammatically complete sentences. Adults do not typically speak in grammatically complete sentences. ठीक है? Therefore, what children hear is a small sample. Therefore, what children hear is a small sample. So see, they are hearing a small sample, but when it comes to speech production, they're producing the whole complete sentence. How is it possible? Okay? So he says, Chomsky therefore concluded that children must have an inborn faculty. Children must have an inborn faculty. Faculty means teacher. Children must have an inborn faculty for language acquisition. तो पेरेंट तो केवल सैंपल दे रहे हैं, इनकी असली शिक्षा इनके जन्म से ही इनके अंदर एक शिक्षक बैठा हुआ है, वो दे रहा है. ठीक है? इनबॉर्न फैकल्टी. ठीक है? हु इज रिस्पांसिबल फॉर लैंग्वेज एक्विजिशन. द नेचुरल प्रीडिस्पोजिशन, दिस नेचुरल प्रीडिस्पोजिशन, द इनबॉर्न फैकल्टी इज द नेचुरल प्रीडिस्पोजिशन, is known as LAD. LAD stands for language acquisition device. So we are born with an inborn faculty, language acquisition device, which help us learn complex and complete sentences even with impoverished linguistic input received from the parents. According to him, we have evolved. According to him, we have evolved a brain whose neural circuits, we have evolved a brain, due to evolution, we have evolved a brain whose neural circuits contain new linguistic informations. According to him, we have evolved a brain whose neural circuits contain linguistic information about nouns, verbs, and tense at the time of birth. So we have evolved a brain whose neural circuits contain linguistic informations about nouns, verbs, and tense at the time of birth. At the time of birth, your brain's neural circuit understand which word will be a noun, which will refer to a verb, and what will be tense, present, future और past. इसके साथ ही आपका जन्म होता है, और इस डिवाइस को जो कि आपके ब्रेन के न्यूरल सर्किट में है उसको कहते हैं लैड. लैड अगर ना होता तो पेरेंट्स के कुपोषित संवाद से आप कुछ भी ना सीख पाते. आप सीख पा रहे हैं क्योंकि आपके अंदर बैठा ये फैकल्टी लैड आपको सिखा रहा है, ठीक। Now LAD consists of innate knowledge of grammatical structures. LAD consists of innate knowledge of grammatical structures. Innate knowledge of grammatical structures. And there are two types of grammatical structures. So LAD consists of two types of grammatical structures: surface structure and deep structure. Surface structure and deep structure. Surface structure are the actual phrases used in the utterance. Surface structure is the actual phrase used in the sentence or used in the utterance. ठीक है, आपने कहा क्या? That is surface structure. What is manifested in speech is surface structure. Say for example, surface structure is visiting guest can be boring. Visiting guests can be boring. Deep structure reflects the meaning of the surface structure. Deep structure reflects the meaning of the surface structure. So suppose you hear a surface structure which the parent said, visiting guest can be boring. Now the LAD, which also has deep structure, will interpret the meaning of the surface structure. And there are two meanings which can be derived from single surface structure. One is, when we visit the guest, the affair may be very boring. किसी मेहमान के यहाँ जाना बहुत बोरिंग इवेंट हो सकता है. एंड दूसरा, when guests visit our place, it may be very boring. So there are two meanings that emerge out of this surface structure. That is, sometimes visiting guests or relatives can be boring affair. Sometimes visiting guests or relatives can be boring affair. Or the relatives who visit can be boring. Or relatives who visit can be boring. Now these two meanings are distinguished at deep structure. The two meanings of the phrase is distinguished only in the deep structure. Likewise, there can be one deep structure for two surface structures. Likewise, there can be one deep structure for two different surface structures. देखो, the man wrote the book. The book was written by man. These are two different surface structures, but they have one meaning. The deep structure is only one. यहाँ पर दो surface structure है, लेकिन deep structure सिर्फ एक है. So with the help of deep structure, we can create multiple surface structures, and we can create multiple deep structure with single surface structure. This is the ability which our LAD provides us. एक ही बात को कई तरीके से बताया जा सकता है और एक ही बात का कई तरह का मतलब निकाला जा सकता है, जो कि हमें पेरेंट्स ने नहीं सिखाया है, जो कि हमारे इनबॉर्न फैकल्टी LAD ने सिखाया. Are you getting it? This capability is coming from the inbuilt faculty, that is LAD. ठीक है. Therefore Chomsky argued that lad has a transformational grammar. Now this is an important term, transformational grammar. Lad has an transformational grammar which allows us to transfer the meaning of surface structure into deep structure and deep structure into surface structure. So lad has a transformational grammar which allow us to change the surface structure into deep structure and deep structure into surface structure. In the later part of his theory, Chomsky replaced, in 1980, Chomsky replaced the concept of lad with universal grammar. In the later part of his theory, Chomsky replaced the concept of the idea of lad with idea of universal grammar. Universal grammar is linguistic universal which are found in every language. Universal grammar is linguistic universal which is found in every language. And there are two types of linguistic universals found in every language. Okay? They are substantive universal and formal universals. Universal grammar is linguistic universal found in every language, almost every language, and there are two types of linguistic universals, substantive and formal. Substantive universal concerns all those categories that are common in all languages. Substantive universal comprise of all those categories which are common in all languages. Like nouns and verbs. चाहे आप किसी भी लैंग्वेज के हो, regardless of belonging to any language, there are nouns which are commonly found in all cultures and all linguistic communities, and there are verbs which are actions done by all communities. For example, in all communities, there will be a father, there will be a mother. This is a substantive universal. In some communities, father will be known as dad, in some papa, in some pita, in some patre. ठीक है, लेकिन ये कॉमन नाउन है, ये एक ऐसा नाउन है जो कि हर लिंग्विस्टिक कम्युनिटी में होगा. मम्मी अकॉर्डिंगली हर लिंग्विस्टिक कम्युनिटी में होगी. व्हीकल, कार, ये हर लिंग्विस्टिक कम्युनिटी में होगा. खेलना, खाना बनाना, कुकिंग, प्लेइंग, killing, these are certain common linguistic universals which are found in all the linguistic communities. These are called substantive universal. ठीक है? And formal universal are concerned with the general grammatical and syntactical rules. General grammatical and syntactical rules For example, Greenberg in the year 1963, found that word order is an example of linguistic universal. Word order is an example of linguistic universal. He found that in 44% of world languages, the word order is subject, object, verb. In 44% of the world languages, the word order is subject followed by object, followed by verb. In 35% of world languages, the word order is subject, followed by verb, followed by object. Therefore, in 98% of the world languages, subject precedes the object. In 98% of the world languages, subject precedes the object. So it can be, and only 2% of the world languages are those where object comes before subject. Okay. So object, verb, subject, or object, subject, verb, it is very rare. 98% में subject will precede the object. This is a linguistic universal. Chomsky therefore argued that these linguistic universals are innately present. These linguistic universals are innately present. And hence, an individual who has learned any one language, is capable of learning any other language. An individual who has learned any one language is capable of learning any other language by using this inbuilt linguistic universal. Okay. Now, limitation of Chomsky. Chomsky fails to explain why should the child speak at all. Chomsky fails to explain why should the child speak at all without any stimulation from the environment. Why should the child speak at all without any stimulation from the environment? So he is totally ignoring the role of environment. So why should the child speak at all? Unless stimulated by the environment. And second, his theory overemphasizes grammar instead of real interaction that takes place between child and parents. His theory overemphasizes on grammar instead of real interactions that take place between child and parent. Okay. Now, these are the theories of language development. Now, language acquisition. These three are theories of language acquisition. Now, an important debate that draws from all this discussion is that, is there any connection between language and thought? Is there any connection between language and thought? We saw that children start by imitation, then they start talking one word utterance, then they start understanding the meaning of the sentences, then they start producing sentences. So what is leading to what? Is the maturity of thought is leading to expansion of language, or is it expansion of language which is leading to maturity or development of thought? What is the relationship between language and thought? This becomes the question, and I will deal with this question on Monday. Language and thought का क्या relation है? Are they mutually independent or they interdependent? Which affects what? ठीक है? We will discuss this, and there are three theories which are very important in this regard. And on Monday morning, I will also discuss with you the topic of communication. So Monday morning we are completing the topic of language and communication, and Monday evening we are having class. So morning and evening, 2 sessions will be there in psychology, and we are going to conclude it by 30th. ठीक है? तो छोटे छोटे टॉपिक्स हैं, उनको कवर करते जाना है. शाम के सेशंस में मैं कोशिश करूंगा उन हल्के टॉपिक्स को रखने का, मॉर्निंग सेशन में हेवी टॉपिक्स को रखने का. ठीक है? तो I guess that if you push yourself for another 5 days, it will save the future time for self-study, rather than hanging over. And then also there is provision of QIP and all that is also being suffering. So it's better that push yourself for 5 days, morning and evening, 2 sessions of psychology. I just need 5 days, Monday to Friday. हो सकता है सिर्फ 3 दिन में आपको एक्स्ट्रा क्लास के लिए बुलाओ, हो सकता है कि 5 दिन बुलाओ, ये डिपेंड करता है कि कितना हम लोग जाते हैं डीप. ठीक है? Is that okay online? Please bear with me. ठीक है? Even if it is causing discomfort, but this discomfort will be less as compared to I keeping you hanged up till the month of May or first week of May. ठीक है? Okay. So see you on Monday. There are some chats. Let me read it. Okay. Yeah, 6 to 8 p.m. will be the evening time. Morning time, as usual, it will continue. 6 to 8 p.m. you can attend from the home. Morning time, you are free to come here. Offline students. An online student, obviously, you will be attending from home, both the classes. See.